Hello and welcome to Weird Around Illinois. You know, we haven't talked about Mothman in a while, so let's do that, and let's get weird. Today we're going to talk about the 5 best places to find Mothman in Illinois, because y'all want to find Mothman, right? Before I begin, I should probably give a big thanks to the works of Tobias Wayland and Lon Strickler, because both of those guys have done tremendous research on Mothman in Illinois, and they posted a lot of stuff on their websites, and they've written some books on the subject, and they really made our research a little bit easier. Having gone before on this. So thank you to you guys, and let's get started. Number 5 on our list is Rockford, Illinois, or the Wkegan of the West, as I like to call it. There have been a number of sightings in Rockford, Illinois, and they go back several decades. Probably some of the most interesting ones happened in the year 2010. And it wasn't actually in Rockford, it was in Winnebago County, just north of Rockford. But we had 2 very, very similar sightings. Again, these are ones that Tobias Wayland has written about in the past, where you've got teenagers, basically 17-year-olds, joyriding through the cornfields, and 2 separate sets of teenagers, different times, different roads, driving down this lonely road in Rockford, going faster than they should, doing things they shouldn't, and suddenly this Mothman bursts out of the corn ahead of them and either runs or flies across the road. And the descriptions were identical, you know, the large, dark, winged being with glowing red eyes. They didn't have quite the sense of foreboding that some other incidents have had, just because they were fast, you know, just a few seconds and then they were gone. Although there was enough terror there that the people got the heck out of there very, very quickly and didn't look back. There was another sighting in Rockford more recently, and it was featured on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix, but it was in June of 2022, and it was apparently a winged humanoid over a canal in Rockford, and caused some people some fright there. So there have been a number of other sightings in and around Rockford over the years, going back as far as I think 1990, so for that reason, that's the 5th best place in Illinois to find yourself a Mothman.
Yeah, fair enough. And number 4 is Wakanda, Illinois. Now, despite this should be more infamous for the Black Panther, which was our last podcast, it has a few, well, from like one big infamous Mothman sighting. That was once more recorded from the Phantom Monsters website.
The Lon Strickler one, Phantoms and Monsters?
Yes, Phantom and Monsters. Essentially, this lady, Paula, apparently was living in her home. She looked out of her bedroom window, and immediately she was struck by this absolutely retina-burning light that seemed to be gold, orange, something along those lines, and immediately she fell back onto her bed and was absolutely startled by that, because I mean, it came out of nowhere. She didn't know what was happening. At some point, she was able to identify some kind of outline of a creature. I don't even know how that would happen if it was such a powerful light, but she was able to identify that there was something beyond that light. And it wasn't, the website specifically said that it wasn't like, you know, some reflection from a giant flashlight or something. It was a direct beam of light similar to a laser, very direct.
But the shape that she saw was a winged humanoid Mothman kind of thing?
Precisely. And that was in 2014, pretty close to 2010, as you were talking about in Rockford.
Yeah.
But a little bit later, but this isn't where it ends. Many years later, in 2017, same person comes across the same thing. I'm pretty sure the same location, really. I don't remember if it was like outside of her home or like at the same window. I cannot recall. But I do remember that she saw a very similar figure that, you know, wasn't like lights again, but she was able to see a creature without the light disturbing her, of the 7 to 8 foot tall, big winged bat-like creature.
Now, I read a little bit about this in Tobias Wayland's book, about the Lake Michigan Mothman, and they did talk about it a little bit on the movie, The Trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman, as well.
Really?
Yeah, and one of the interesting things about that is when this being left her, it flew off over the Lakewood Forest Preserve, which is like right across the street.
Interesting.
And you may recall a few years ago, we actually went and checked that forest preserve for that exact same reason. And I think all we found was a really threatening looking mushroom.
Oh yeah, a giant mushroom.
Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot about that thing.
Yeah. But in case you forgot, that's why we were there.
All right.
So number 3 on the list is Wkegan. I guess the sightings mainly started in like 2020.
Well, that's the most recent group, but I'll tell you a story after you finish your group.
Okay. So in August of 2020, a family of 6 apparently saw like a black flying humanoid near Lake Michigan on Market Street. The witness described it as looking like Iron Man, and it had like no visible wings, and it was like in the afternoon at 2 p.m.
Now, Market Street, in case you don't recall, is where we found Mothman's couch and toilet.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
This was first reported on Singular 14 Society, which is Tobias's website, and then it was eventually reported on Phantoms and Monsters 2. They actually, I think, reposted it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually that same report actually came to us, to our encounter forum.
Mm-hmm.
That same witness.
Yeah.
The witness actually mentioned in that report that he told Tobias or whoever they talked to, I guess. I actually have it here. It said, "We didn't say anything about it until a couple of months ago. I shared it with another man who's been keeping track of these sightings." I'm guessing that was Tobias.
Yeah, probably. Either him or Lon Strickler.
Yeah.
But Tobias had it first, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, was that related to the Bowen Park sighting? I know there was one in Bowen Park as well in that time.
That's the next one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So in October of 2020, a couple of young adults claimed to see a red-eyed winged being in the trees. That was near the Wkegan skate park.
Now, we covered that area. We went all over Bowen Park looking for Mothman and anything else that happened to be lurking out there.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the ancient history sighting here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
This one I actually heard when, I believe it was a podcast you sent me where Lon Strickler was interviewing Tobias.
Oh, yeah.
And they were talking about various Mothman sightings. And one of them that came up was a sighting in Wkegan in 1976. And I had to do a little bit of digging and I had to do a little bit of reading to kind of sort this out because the report they made didn't make sense to me as a Waukeganite. The geographical landmarks they were giving were wrong and the description just didn't quite work. But what I was able to piece together after much reading and research and talking to fellow Waukeganites who were there in the 70s like I was, we were able to figure out that this sighting actually took place near the lakefront on one of the big gypsum silos. There was a place that made gypsum, and that's like for drywall and that kind of thing. It's like the weird white stuff in the middle. This plant on the Waukegan lakefront made it, and this Mothman was perched on top of the silo where they keep the stuff. And these people were down there, they were working on a stalled car, and this thing scared the heck out of them. They looked up and were immediately filled with terror. It was this huge bat-like creature. They jumped in the working car and took off, and then this thing swooped down and actually scraped the top of their car and tried to run them off the road, which was, a very physical encounter for Mothman. That you almost never hear that in the Illinois sightings. That's more like the West Virginia sightings you hear that about.
Yeah.
But very frightening stuff. And what struck me about it is 1977 was right around the time when I had my weird encounter with the Lake Michigan sea creature. And it was probably less than a quarter mile from that site. I mean, literally, it's on the same road. And it got me to thinking as I was reading more about these Mothman sightings and finding out that some of these sightings involve Mothman like diving underwater. I'm like, my gosh, did I see Mothman?
That would be funny.
It's amazing what your mind will do to you after about 50 years. But that was my ancient history Wkegan Mothman sighting story.
All right. Well, you'd be the person to talk about that kind of story, so makes sense.
I just wanted to go back to that first Wkegan story that I mentioned. I think it's very weird that they described it as like looking like Iron Man, and it had no wings either. That part I find really curious.
Yeah, that is odd. And another thing that comes up in these Mothman sightings sometimes is people very rarely see Mothman flap its wings.
Yeah, true.
Usually when it flies, it's almost like it's jet powered or something, and the wings are just for ballast or airlift.
Yeah, and most of the sightings that I've just researched recently, I've seen the term gliding instead of, flying or like going really fast, anything like that.
Yeah.
Just a casual glide.
Yeah, so, I mean, the idea that Mothman could fly without wings does not seem that foreign to me, just because it seems like the wings are almost a decoration. He never seems to use them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe the wings were just like tied back or something.
Yeah. Or maybe they were shot off. I mean, it was Wkegan. I love my old hometown.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Some parts are better than others.
Definitely.
Yeah, but anyway, down to number 2, which is downtown Chicago. Obviously, the most populated area in Illinois. This, from what I've seen, there has to be. I saw one website saying that there was 29 sightings at one point, and it was all like around the 2015 area. I didn't see all of them, but there were 2 from 2 different websites. I think they were all kind of sprouting from the Phantoms and Monsters website. I didn't get into full detail with that website, but one of them was from a guy named Ryan, and he was renting out an area on the something above the 8th floor of some building in Chicago, and he essentially went down to the 8th floor. I don't remember the context. He was walking down the 8th floor of the hallway of the apartment that he was living in, and he looked out of a window, and what he saw was a giant winged creature gliding around. It was using that exact term. And it was just gliding around right across from him, very close to a building. The website actually had 2 different pictures of like the window from the window that he was talking about, and it was pretty high up. And at night or during the day, I'm pretty sure it was during the day. That would be very easy to identify at that angle. So
yeah, I think Phantoms and Monsters made Lon, he made a whole map of like Mothman sightings and I guess not in Illinois, but like the Chicago area in general, right?
Yeah, and for there to be so many sightings there, I'm kind of surprised because of how much population there is.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys were talking about how, more in the South, Mothman is a little bit more aggressive, and that would make sense because, well, there's less population, less to be worried about. But Mothman is popping up over large cities in downtown Chicago with all those people under him. I don't understand his logic.
Yeah, it's crazy. And some people believe he's a harbinger of doom, and maybe something horrible is about to happen in Chicago, but he's been popping up for a decade now. So
yeah,
unless they were predicting some of the horrible seasons from Chicago sports teams, I don't know what he's talking about or what he's worried about.
Yeah.
Maybe the Mothman feeds on negative energy.
Maybe.
Because there's a lot of negative energy in Chicago, I'm sure.
That's definitely true. Yeah.
And, on the bridge in Point Pleasant, I'm sure there's a lot of negative energy, maybe from people. I'm not sure what time this was, but maybe people coming home from work or to work, something.
That's an interesting theory. We'll have to delve into that one sometime. I like that idea.
Yeah, I just thought of it.
Yeah.
Another one that I am recalling is in 2017, a guy named Joseph literally had a very similar situation. A relatively tall building, saw the Mothman gliding around super high. He thought it was something else, maybe a bird, maybe even a trash can falling down somehow, but no. It was Mothman, something irregularly big.
Now, I'd heard a similar story to those two, but this was a woman who was terrified looking out her window and seeing the Mothman basically staring in at her, and she was on a very high floor.
Interesting.
And she was expecting a visit from some friends, and she was like hiding under or behind her couch when the friends showed up. And they came in and they said, "You wouldn't believe what we saw. There's like this giant bat circling your building."
Oh, that's funny.
And so,
really reassuring.
yeah, exactly. So it was like they saw Mothman from two different angles in Chicago. There was also a sighting in Chicago that was kind of famous. It was the Pulaski Road sighting, and it was like right by this giant Indian statue. And there was a picture taken, and the authorities kind of dismissed it as a kite. Everyone who saw it said, "You're crazy. That wasn't a kite. Kites don't fly like that."
Oh.
It was like it had like movement like a living thing. Plus, when it left, it flew in a straight line away from the area. So unless the person was like running down Pulaski Road at 75 miles an hour, pulling the kite behind him in a straight line, there's not really any way to do that.
Yeah. No. Quite difficult to pull off.
Yeah.
It's much more believable, though. I mean, I guess that is for a sighting. I guess you could easier to see a Mothman because it's really difficult to like simulate that.
Yeah.
As you've demonstrated there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if you just see it for a glimpse for a second, it's hard to simulate. But a lot of these witnesses see it for 5, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, at a high angle.
Yeah.
Must have changed it.
Number one on our list is OHare Airport.
Yes.
So the sightings like mainly first started in 2011, and much more of the sightings is like a peak period basically. In 2017, there were like over 55 sightings reported. And then of course in 2019 and 2020, there's another peak. I don't have the exact numbers, but there's also a lot.
I remember we were counting close to 100 in that area when we were checking it out over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Oh my.
I think that was over the years though. I don't think it's just.
Yeah, that was like from 2011 until now.
Yeah, and so yeah, they're still going on today. I don't think they're as frequent, but they're still like trickling in here and there.
Yeah, this was one of those very famous areas where not only were there obviously on this list is number one, probably the most Mothman sightings in northern Illinois. It has a crap ton of UFO sightings, a bunch of random cryptid sightings all around it. I mean, it's got everything.
Yeah, if you like look at the Phantoms and Monsters website, or if you listen to like that interview with Lon Strickler and Tobias, when they start to describe the Mothman sightings in OHare, they always reference other things. It's like, oh yeah, that's right by where they saw the Dogman, or that's right by where that UFO was supposed to crash, or that was right by where they saw the giant UFO over OHare Airport.
Yeah, there's some over 2,000 UFO sightings around there.
Yeah.
I remember we investigated Rest Haven Cemetery.
Yes.
There's like a Mothman sighting right next to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It was right on top of the FedEx building or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, and it's also Elk Grove Village is kind of in that area as well. And there was the Mothman Dogman hybrid sighting in that little cemetery there.
Yeah. Before we even investigated the Rest Haven Cemetery, I actually saw that Tobias made a video of him literally investigating there. Huh. So that was pretty cool. I don't think he found anything though.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a creepy vibe to that place. But,
yeah, it was dark though. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are the top 5 places you're going to want to look if you're trying to find Mothman in Illinois. If you've got some more places to add to this list, or if you've seen Mothman at any of these places, by all means, let us know. Just leave a comment, or you're welcome to fill out our anonymous contact form if you'd rather tell your story without your name attached to it. As always, thank you for listening, and thank you for subscribing.